welcome everyone. If I might ask, our honored guests are, I think, here, and all of our participants and supporters. I am Barbara Roth, First Vice President of COBWRA. I'm delighted that you have understood the importance of saving the Ag Reserve and opposing the GL land swap. And in so doing, you have joined us today. So thank you from COBWRA. We have many partners in this effort in Palm Beach County, as you well know. We have two extremely important supporters, one of whom is here today, and that is Commissioner Marcy Woodward. If you would, please. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for understanding the gem of the Ag Reserve and also the danger of the precedent. And we will get into that discussion with our experts. Before I introduce our expert speakers today, I must introduce our gracious hosts. This is Irish Acres in Delray, Florida, and you would think you were in some other wonderland. Yeah, exactly. Joe and Barbara O'Donnell, may I ask you please to say a few words, and thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Time warp, I like that. I may put that on the website. This is my wife, Barbara. And I'm sure you have no question. She runs it.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Thank you for coming. COBWRA asked if we could host this, and the reason is so you would understand there's a lot of active business going on in the Ag Reserve that you never see. Starkey Road is full of different farms. That's what it is. It's a farm road. This is one of the farms. There's another horse farm here. There's also two other horse farm owners, Judy Hill and Matt Penchek. If you guys could stand up in case you have questions about equine, there they are. So they own two other horse farms just on the other side of Lyons. It wasn't that many years ago, we used to be able to ride from, or to 5 other horse farms very much like this. We're unfortunately the only one this size that's left. The others are all shopping centers or houses. And that's within 10 years. I very much appreciate your interest, or you wouldn't be here, to save the Ag Reserve. It certainly needs saving, and it takes a fight, one you can never stop. At the end of this, I'm more than happy to show people around what an active horse farm looks like in South Florida. And you're invited, so just let me know who wants to come along at the end. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara and Joe. When we speak about partners who continue to fight the good fight, I must introduce Dr. Lori Vinegar. Lori, where are you? We just had Lori. She stepped away for a moment. Lori Vinegar also is a farmer in the Ag Reserve in Delray, and she has horses, and she has been fighting this good fight for many years. I would be remiss if I did not introduce Myrna Rossoff. Myrna is President Emerita of COBWRA. She's the only person to have served her 3-year term as president, and then when she was needed after a gap, she came back and served again. And she's one of the people, if you just use one name in Palm Beach County and you say Myrna, people know who that is. Also, my vice president that I worked together with, she and I, Debbie Murphy. Our secretary, Cheryl Dodds, who was signing you in. Our treasurer, Alan Appel, is here. He's the gentleman who gets the bills for this. are grateful for everyone else assembled. We have Rabbi Barry Silver. We're honored by your presence always and your advocacy. Dagmar Braz is here, past president of COBWRA. Been fighting this fight a long time. The gentleman with the camera is Fred Hadley, who volunteers his services to all good causes. And to everyone else, thank you. Our mission is to try as hard as we can to have this proposed GL land swap stopped. We have been working on this, frankly, for years. Since 2016, Myrna reminds me. We have, as I said, the good partners in this advocacy work, and that's what keeps COBWRA going. COBWRA covers 55 square miles of the unincorporated area of Palm Beach County. COBWRA's been around for over 42 years. Not everyone recognizes that, and sometimes people say, well, why is COBWRA, so concerned about that property down in North Boca? Or why are we concerned about property in Delray? The reason is that this land is precious to all of Palm Beach County. In addition to that, in 1999, a covenant was made with the people of Palm Beach County who voted overwhelmingly to support a bond issue to protect this acreage in the Ag Reserve. COBWRA has continued to work with developers and with the Board of County Commissioners in trying to moderate that development. COBWRA is for good growth. We say that repeatedly. This is literally, however, a bridge too far. And we're delighted that we have with us today two extraordinary, renowned experts in the field. The first person I will introduce is Paul Owens, longtime friend of Florida and the environment. He is the president of 1,000 Friends of Florida. And Paul has been one of our go-to people for years. I'm certainly a member of 1,000 Friends of Florida. I get all his literature, as do many of the people in COBWRA. Oh, and forgive me, my apologies. We have Sierra Club here today. Linda Smith, and when we speak about partners, Linda Smith and Fred Hadley are both active in the Sierra Club. Excuse me. So, back to Paul Owens. We are delighted, and then after Paul Owens speaks, we have, I will call it the icing on the cake, which is Dr. Chris McVoy. Dr. McVoy is a noted soil expert, hydrologist. He also dabbles in politics. He is the vice mayor of Lake Worth Beach. So he's taken time from his very busy schedule to join us today. So may I ask Paul, if you would.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. So, as Barbara said, I'm Paul Owens. I'm president of 1,000 Friends of Florida. We are a nonprofit, strictly nonpartisan advocate for fiscally and environmentally responsible growth throughout Florida, including here in Palm Beach County. Our history of advocating for the agricultural reserve dates back more than 2 decades. We worked with county leaders, planners, conservationists, and other concerned citizens to help establish the tier that enshrined the Ag Reserve in the county's comp plan in 2001. And that was 2 years after the approval of the bond issue that Barbara mentioned, in which county voters approved a $150 million bond issue to purchase land for conservation within the reserve. Since then, we've been submitting comments, delivering public testimony, and appealing for support to our Palm Beach County members to take a stand against development proposals that are incompatible with the Ag Reserve's purpose. And that purpose is clearly spelled out in the comp plan: to preserve farmland and wetlands, to enhance agricultural activity, environmental and water resources, and open space by prioritizing agriculture, conservation, low-density residential development, and non-residential uses that serve the needs of farm workers and residents of the ag preserve. And that really provides the prism through which development proposals need to be evaluated by leaders. Yet in recent years, county leaders have increasingly been yielding to pressure to permit more dense or intense development in the Ag Reserve than was envisioned by the comp plan. The reserve is approaching a tipping point where unfettered development could make agriculture no longer economically viable. That would remove the most durable obstacle to runaway development throughout the reserve. The development pressure in the Ag Reserve epitomizes the pressure on undeveloped lands throughout Florida, and is part of the reason why we're so engaged on this as a statewide organization. Earlier this year, we unveiled a pair of reports that we did with our partners at the University of Florida, projecting the impact of population growth, development, and sea level rise on land use and population migration in our state in the coming decades. And that report found that if Florida remains on its current sprawling growth trajectory, we will lose 190 acres every single day to development between now and 2070. The loss of that land will mean the loss of the critical benefits it provides, including aquifer recharge, water filtration, flood control, wildlife habitat, biodiversity, carbon sequestration, and recreation. For years, my organization has worked to expand land conservation throughout our state. We've endorsed and promoted successful local land conservation initiatives in multiple counties and municipalities. We've lobbied legislators to invest state dollars in conservation programs like Florida Forever and the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program. To meet the state's obligation under the Land and Water Conservation Amendment in the state constitution that voters overwhelmingly approved in 2014. The vote here in Palm Beach County on that amendment, by the way, was 3-1 in favor. We helped persuade legislators this year to dedicate $1 billion to land conservation in the current state budget. But conserving natural and agricultural land in Florida surely starts with protecting what we've already reserved for that purpose. Failing to limit development on farmland within the Ag Reserve will cost jobs and income. That's a point that Joe, I think, has just alluded to. It's important to keep in mind that farms in the reserve generated $120 million in income in 2017, according to the county's own report. Developing the reserve also increases pollution from stormwater runoff and residential fertilizer, degrading the water supply and quality of life of residents in southern Palm Beach County. It decreases water recharge into the aquifer and natural water storage, adding stress to drinking water supplies and increasing the threat of flooding in the region. It further degrades the buffer between more densely developed areas to the east and the Arthur R. Marshall-Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge to the west. Whatever property tax dollars development in the ag reserve generates will be offset by the cost of the public services it demands, from wider roads to water to sewer to schools to police and fire protection. And consider the price it also extracts in traffic congestion and other negative impacts. So now to the issue at hand, the land swap proposed by GL Homes. If this is given precipitous final approval by the Palm Beach County Commission later this month, the swap would allow GL Homes to build 1,277 homes west of State Road 7 on almost 700 acres of protected land within the ag reserve. And remember, this is land GL Homes promised to preserve for the right to increase density elsewhere within the reserve. In return, GL Homes would pay to build a reservoir 20 miles away on its Indian Trails Grove property and reduce the number of homes it plans to build there. I acknowledge that benefits could accrue to Palm Beach County and West Palm Beach in particular if the reservoir is ultimately constructed and it functions as intended. That's a big if. It is by no means assured, and Dr. McVoy, who is speaking after me, will get into more details. But there is no question that the ag reserve will bear the costs of this development deal without realizing any of the reserve's purported environmental benefits. Transferring development rights into the ag reserve to allow construction of a luxury subdivision makes a mockery of the reserve's priorities of agriculture, conservation, and open space. And it invites similar proposals in the future that county leaders will have a much harder time turning down, both legally and practically. This helps explain why both the county staff and the Planning Commission recommended denying the land swap. They accurately, though perhaps too mildly, described it as a departure from the vision anticipated for the ag reserve as stated in the comp plan. Calling it a departure is like calling a shipwreck a departure from a pleasure cruise. So, assuming the proposed reservoir is needed and will deliver on its promises, and again, that's far from certain, those promises should not come at the expense of the ag reserve. The benefits from protecting the reserve are just too numerous and too important to be bargained away. Doing so would set a precedent that would threaten remaining conservation lands both within and well beyond the ag reserve. Palm Beach County, like Florida, doesn't have any conservation land to spare. So before I hand over the podium to Dr. McVoy, I want to thank our allies in this campaign to defend the ag reserve, starting with COBWRA, who did a masterful job in organizing today's event, as well as the Loxahatchee group of the Sierra Club, Save the Agricultural Reserve for Agriculture, the Everglades Law Center, Sustainable Palm Beach County, and Friends of the Everglades, who confirmed to me just yesterday their support for us in this battle. And my apologies to any other groups I might have left out. This campaign to save the reserve is a citizen-driven effort to maintain the promise that Palm Beach County leaders made more than 2 decades ago. But it's also a promise for future generations who will benefit from preserving the reserve. When commissioners take their final vote on the land swap this month, we urge them to vote it down and to uphold the integrity of the reserve and the will of voters.
Thank you, Paul. So clear and eloquent as always. I appreciate that. Now, Dr. Chris McBoy, and I think afterwards we will certainly take some questions. Gentlemen, is that okay with you afterwards?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me first say a couple of things. Thank you very much to Irish Acres and for hosting this, for COBWRA for beautiful signs getting us here without any bumps in the road, and for organizing in general. Very, very important. And then let me address sort of the flavor of what I'm going to say generally. But before I do, I 100% agree with everything that Paul said. I think he hit the big picture of why we're here, why we care, right on the money. And the only thing I would add is I think everybody who sits here and who is under these trees and is thinking of kids growing up in Palm Beach County and is thinking that, you know, part of the reason they voted for the Ag Reserve is we don't want everybody to grow up in a planned development that was mowed down every bit of topography, every bit of native vegetation, and plants it with stuff that doesn't belong here. And kids grow up without, that's dirt. I was out planting cattails as part of an Everglades restoration project yesterday. We want people to be in the dirt. We want people to be in trees and things. But that's the bigger picture. Thank you for that. I'm going to focus very specifically on the swap aspect. It's always being reported as a land swap. And in particular, my expertise, I'm a soil physicist, which is pretty close to the same thing as a hydrologist in South Florida. And I'll start by saying you may have seen some rumors about world-renowned. What I'm here to tell you about today is skepticism. The world-renowned, in my case, is an unfortunate increasing a little bit my reputation, although I have worked in a number of countries, but I'm not world-renowned. But I do know a good deal about the Everglades and a good deal about South Florida development history, and I know quite a bit about water things. So for me, the key issue here is, and because I'm going to focus just on the water side, I'm trying to stay in my lane a little bit. Other people, you know, have done a very good job of addressing the bigger issue. On the lane, the key question is, okay, they're proposing a water project, let's call it. Nobody in South Florida thinks that having extra water storage or having extra water cleaning is a bad idea. It's something that you say, I'm for mom, apple pie, teachers, moms, and water storage, and you're good to go. However, the tricky part is I can say that this is going to bring you benefits. Everybody in here is smart enough to ask, that's cool. What are the benefits? How big are the benefits? And has anybody besides the guy selling the snake oil defined those benefits and vetted it out? That's where I'm going. Now, even at the level of journalism, hydrology is otherwise known as gobbledygook. You've got to deal with acronyms, canal names, pump numbers, basins, CFS, acre feet, million gallons a day, wet season, dry season, oh my gosh, allocation. It's a mess. It's hard to sort through. And if somebody sort of waves a paper that has some of that on it, you go, oh yeah, that must be about right. If you get that from GL Holmes, be very suspicious of it. It's difficult to plow through. What I'm going to try to do is give you a bit of the context. The details are murky and hard to deal with. The concepts are not. They're right here. You can see water over there. You can get some idea of how the water moves. You can probably ask somebody how much, all that sort of thing. I'll go through that a little bit. So context on this is very important. What other water storage or water treatment things are going on already in this area that affect the areas that GL Holmes tells you will benefit? The Lake Worth Lagoon, the North Fork of the Loxahatchee River, and the West Palm Beach water supply and grassy waters. Have they given you, well, as I mentioned earlier, it's not enough to say benefits. And if you look close at their, the GL Holmes presentations, they're very fuzzy about benefits. Will clean water, will create some benefits. And you look at other stuff, if you look at anything from the Water Management District or from the City of West Palm Beach water people, it looks very different. It's into the details of trying to look at, okay, how much benefits. So the potential for oversell, particularly when the guys who are telling you how good this reservoir is are the same guys that want to do the swap. That should be a tip-off a little bit right away. Trust but verify is what I would say. The other thing that gives some context is I worked at the Water Management District for quite a while and was involved in Everglades restoration. They have a process. Whenever you're going to do a project that's supposed to benefit something or other, it is a lengthy, you can even argue, overkill process, but there's a reason for it. You've got to check out what are your objectives. You put them down on paper. You kick the tires of them a little bit. Then you go get some guys to model it and say, okay, those are nice objectives. Here's your proposed solution. Will it in fact do that? And check it out. And then when you're done with the modeling, you go find somebody else who you can say, hey, our guys modeled it, but could you look at it and tell me whether they might have forgotten something? It can happen. Anybody can do that. It's not a bad thing, but you want to check it out. And you want to publish all this stuff so somebody else can look at it and say, yeah, there's something to that, or, gee, that looks a little thin. So that process has not been done. It just has not been done. And that should be something that we raise a lot with our county commissioners. Who did the due diligence on this? Why are you just listening to long, lengthy presentations from GL Holmes? Who else have you gotten to model this? Like, really model it, not just kind of model it. So let's go to context. Now, this is a little bit, I said in my notes, unfortunately, it's a little bit like, my pumps are bigger than your pumps. Well, yeah, but my reservoir is better than your reservoir. It's a little bit that. But I need you to know that there is something called the C51 Reservoir Phase 2 project. From here, I'm thinking I'm looking the right way. Basically, if you go out southern and get to where the energy plant is, you're in the neighborhood and Palm Beach aggregates. Big, serious reservoirs. Big, serious amounts of water. I'll get to the numbers later. Big, serious pumps to move that stuff. So my reservoir is bigger than your reservoir, my pumps are bigger than your reservoir, check on that one. And if you want to find out some of it and you're brave and want to read the fine print, you can get it from Paul Linden, the Palm Beach County Water Manager. The other big one that's going on is SERP, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program. That's the joint federal and state program to do the Everglades restoration. It expands out and does a lot of things that are not strictly Everglades but are related in some fashion. One piece of that is the North Fork or the Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project. Big project. It's approved. It's got financing. It's in the design phases. Who's heard of the Mecca Reservoir? Fair number of people. Who's heard of the C18 Reservoir? Same thing. That has not only a reservoir, it also has pump stations. It's also got aquifer storage and recovery to pump water into the ground out of that reservoir and bring it back up into the reservoir and use it. Another one of my pump's bigger than your pump and my reservoir is bigger than your pump. Both of those things are ongoing. Both of them relate to the flowways that GL Holmes talks about. And they have had processes behind them to check them out, make sure that it's not just some guy at the Water Management District say, hey, you know, I think we ought to restore the Loxahatchee River. I think this will work. No, it's checked out to a much greater degree. Who's heard of the West Palm Beach problems with harmful algae blooms that shut them down? Yeah, pretty much everybody. The county commission correctly is concerned about that. That's a pretty good thing to be concerned about. The West Palm Beach water supply is a surface water supply. Comes out of grassy waters, goes to the two lakes, goes into the water treatment plant. Well, where does the water that goes into grassy waters come from? A lot of it comes from rainfall. Some of it comes regionally from Lake Okeechobee. Who's seen the pictures of harmful algae blooms in Lake Okeechobee? Fair number of you have. Okay, now think about this. We've got cattail marsh over here. Pretend you got it over there. And I don't know if you've walked through either cattail marshes or sawgrass marshes or other marshes. Probably some of you have. I know Sierra Club has. It's got stems, and they've got some spacing between them. How big are algae or cyanobacteria? About like that. What's your guess as to whether running a stream that includes algae in it is going to get filtered out by those stems in the marsh? Well, I did a little literature looking because I was skeptical. I did some asking around to people at the University of Florida, and the answer is, if you work really hard, you get really lucky, you might take out a little bit. You want to know what the quote is from Paul Linton, who I have a lot of respect for? He's the county manager. He is in a bad spot, I suspect. He's pretty cautious about what he says, but he put some good things in writing. A lot of respect for him. What he wrote is, it may provide some reduction. Based on my literature review, I think he was being quite generous there. If you want to get reduction of algae, if you want to get even reduction of nutrients, which treatment marshes definitely do, it is tricky. Go talk to the people at the Water Management District that operate the STAs, the water treatment marshes. They are full-time on it. They're always looking more research. How can we make these darn things work better? Because it's difficult. And biology is finicky. And then it rains, and then it floods, and then it gets too deep, and then it gets too shallow. And the plants all say, you know what, we're out of here. And all of a sudden the plants that were growing fine last week are not doing well. And now you don't have the treatment. They're finicky. You need to budget for managing those. And that's for removal of nutrients. Everything in the literature said if you want to remove algae, yeah, good luck. Much more difficult to do. Here's what he said after he said it may provide some reduction. And this makes a lot of sense. Not expected to reduce algae concentrations to the level of no concern. That's the deal on algae. They reproduce. So if I shoot a few of them through the system, through this new reservoir, water treatment, whatever you want to call it, and they make it through and they end up in grassy waters, or they end up in the lakes, or they end up in the treatment plant, my reservoir may be better than your reservoir, but my water treatment not so good. So ask for details on that. It's not acceptable for your commissioners to say, well, we think it might help with that. We know that this land strop will destroy a noticeable chunk of the ag reserve. You better have better than we think it might. Show me the receipts. Show me the studies that say it will, because your own technical people are saying it won't do the trick. I've mentioned water quality. Even one of the things that first tipped me off and made me mad about looking at the GL stuff is they were saying, we're going to create this project and it's going to be both storage and water treatment, fix up the water quality. They were mostly focused on phosphorus. The idea that a constructed wetland can remove phosphorus, that's not a crazy idea. It's difficult to do, but that's reasonable. But, again, go talk to the Water Management District and use your own common sense, which will tell you that if I'm planting wetland plants to suck up the phosphorus, which is reasonable, and stick it down in the soil. Wait a minute, was that wetland plants you said? Let's see, how does a storage reservoir work? Well, sometimes if you want to use the whole thing, you got to run it down to the ground, run it dry. Oops, shoot, my wetland plants just died. Wetland plants, these are not sequoia trees. What if I want to use the full capacity of my storage reservoir? Well, then I got to run it up to my stated height, 4 feet. Most wetland plants are long gone at that point. So when they said you're going to get so many acres times 4 feet of up and down, that's what engineers think for storage, and it's correct. But you can't also say it's a treatment marsh. Now you're overselling. If you look at Paul Linton's numbers, he doesn't say 4,000 acre feet. He says you'll probably get about 1,000 acre feet. That's probably a more realistic number. So let's go back to the mine bigger, etc. thing. The Mecca Reservoir C18 is about 10,000 acre feet. Remember, I just said 1,000 acre feet out of the GL Homes one. The one that's going to go into phase 2 at C51, that's 14,000 acre feet. So you got two of them, and if you added them together, they're 25 times bigger. So I can say benefits. I can say I am putting an eyedropper of cleaner water in the Lake Worth Lagoon. I am benefiting the Lake Worth Lagoon. And not only I'm going to bring my eyedropper and take it over the Loxahatchee River, and I'll benefit that one too. But be skeptical. Get the numbers. hold their feet to the fire. In conclusion on it, and I'm open for questions and things, the benefits have not been, and I don't know what, I couldn't think of a good name for it, but when people always say, well, it's the size of so many football fields, that's what I'm looking for, is the comparison. Okay, you're going to put 2 eyedroppers into the Lake Worth Lagoon, how many acre feet or million gallons a day or whatever numbers you want to put it in, how many are, compared to what goes in now, how many are you putting in and how much cleaner it is? Quantify those benefits. Get a vetting process. Don't take building developers' word for it. And don't even take an engineering consulting firm's word for it. I'll tell you, I learned a whole lot by reading the comments that came back. Paul finally sent them to me from the city of West Palm Beach. And I did a little calling yesterday to try to figure out who did these. I called up the director and I said, whoever wrote your comments was on the money. Biggest quote in those comments is, where's the analysis? That's the technical guys of the city of West Palm Beach. The tech data from Paul says that the benefits of that reservoir would be maybe, if you're lucky, about 7 to 14 days of water that you would get. That's not very long. And that's if there isn't a chloride problem that shuts it down, if there isn't an algae problem that shuts it down. Hold your county commissioners to the numbers. If they're going to argue this is a valuable land swap, they got to show the receipts that they've got them. Because at this point, I have to say that no. Will it have some benefits? Yes. Are they significant? No. Are they oversold? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McVoy, and thank you, Paul Owens.
I might have turned it off.
I'll repeat, it bears repeating. Thank you, Dr. McVoy, and thank you, Paul Owens. And I think the converse of the science and the skepticism behind what both of these gentlemen have presented is the question, the looming question of why. What is GL offering to certain areas, certain communities, certain constituencies in the county to make it worthwhile to overlook this learned technical skepticism? So with that, I think some questions. Debbie will take one microphone. You want to get the other one? Does anyone have a question? Yes, I know we have someone from Villaggio.
Hello?
Here, I'll go.
The question I have in my limited...
Could you please identify yourself?
my name is Rose Moskowitz. I'm with Villaggio. The question I have is, with my limited knowledge of what you just discussed, even if GL gives us all the benefits that they're talking about, who pays for this on a continuation?
Who pays for this?
Yes.
May I?
Yes. Is there an answer?
I'm going to ask COBWRA's President Emerita, if you wouldn't mind, Myrna. Who pays for this? Myrna Rossoff.
We do.
Yes.
And the money is not currently being taxed. This will be a whole new category. And I don't know if this was what was in the commissioner's mind. They even bothered lowering the millage, because we will have to pay for an entire new science within the county. Right now, the county water department, Chris can give us a better idea, is primarily maintenance. And I do have to digress for a moment, because a lot have been said about the needs of other areas of the county, primarily West Palm Beach, their surface water problems, and their need for water from this connection. Does anyone know, has West Palm Beach ever asked for water or help from the county or from South Florida Water Management?
I'm sure that the city is in communications. It was clear from the stuff that I got from Paul Linton that there's been communication back and forth between the county water manager and West Palm Beach, and I'm sure they are always in touch with the water management district because they have to get permits. You know, they have certain allocations. This stuff is pretty tightly controlled by the water management district. So yes, there is communication. There is concern always. People are looking ahead. Obviously, West Palm has developed a lot, so their water needs are going to go up, and the harmful algae blooms. That's all reasonable, but they have been the ones, from what I've seen on paper, the city of West Palm Beach had some smart people helping them out, and they are very skeptical of whether this would really give them very much. To your issue of the cost, I saw also on this an estimate of the cost. It was strictly engineering and operation of the water pumping part of it. There was nothing in there about operating it as a treatment area, which takes much more doing and a staff of people and people. It's not just turning on a pump or opening something. It's a lot more. You got to have biologists who are watching, people who are monitoring different things, people are figuring out how are we going to make this work. If you're going to claim that you're doing water treatment, if you don't claim it, that's fine. But then you got to hold GL Homes to don't claim water quality benefits.
One follow-up, Chris. In talking about all of the capacity, reservoir capacity, on basically both sides of where this project will go, if there was a true need, is there a perhaps cheaper, more efficient way to connect with these reservoirs, which were built with this in mind?
Good question. I went and met with folks from the Water Management District. I think we did it before the May vote, and asked them. This was people who were involved in the planning and execution of the Loxahatchee restoration, which does have tie to the grassy waters also. And we asked them, do you need this reservoir? And they said no. Now, the district is a diplomatic organization. I don't think and I don't know, I haven't tried it, but to get them on record, would you put in writing that you don't need it? No. But I'll tell you that the city of West Palm Beach pointed out in their comments that GL Homes applied to the district in February for an initial sort of conceptual permit, and in July they pulled their application. A reporter has been bugging me. He tried to look at the application stuff. I'm trying to find out, can we get anything to follow up? Why did they pull it and whatnot?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank both of you gentlemen for some excellent presentations. Amazing, all the facts that you have and the research that you did. It's just too bad you haven't been so generous with campaign contributions to the commissioners as the developers in their lack. Otherwise, maybe they'd listen to you instead. But we're listening. I know you want a question, right?
No, I want who you are, please.
Oh, I'm Barry Silver. I've been fighting to protect the ag reserve for a very, very long time with the Environmental Coalition, as my t-shirt says. I also am greatly thankful for COBWRA for organizing this because we're not getting enough real information. It was asked who benefits from this. Why are these constituencies supporting this if you're saying all the information opposed to it? It's very obvious. The rabbis were very clear as to why they support it. They're getting a bribe, which is actually against Jewish law. And it says a bribe will twist the eyes of the wise and blind the eyes of the perspicacious. That's not just a Jewish concept. That applies to everybody. That's universal. They're getting bribes. They should be ashamed. They don't speak for the Jewish community. They certainly don't speak for the rest of the community. And this is something that the Democratic Party also, on paper, is for the environmentalists, but too many clubs are getting supported from the developers that it's tainted them as well. So I thank you very much for what you're doing. And I just want to remind people here who think, well, this is a done deal. They've already voted 5-2, nothing we can do about it. 1,000 Friends and environmentalists confronted a project where they're going to put scripts on Mecca farms, remember?
Yes.
What were we told? The governor's behind this.
Yes.
It's a done deal. They want you to believe that. So you'll do nothing. You guys help to change it around. The Environmental Coalition changed it around. We can change it around because we're in a democracy. I encourage everyone, don't believe that it's a done deal. It ain't. And if we sign petitions and tell the commissioners, if you vote for the swap, we will swap commissioners. And they understand that. They will do the right thing. I have a flyer tonight announcing that we're going to have a big celebration tonight about the Ag Reserve and information. I encourage you to come tonight. All are welcome. You can raise your voice. I encourage you to come to other rallies we're having. Don't give up, my friends. We got really intelligent, great people here with COBWRA, and we can fight back in a democracy. Some are guilty, all are responsible. Let's protect our kids and their generation. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you. And it's exactly the allies, people like you, like the Sierra Club, Everglades Law Center. We have people here from Everglades Law Center who often write the documentation, the briefs. COBWRA reads that. We learn from all of you. So thank you. Yes, anyone else? Well, the petition, please go to COBWRA.org, but we have a few more questions and we'll wrap up with that. Yes, Linda
Yeah,
Smith,
this-
Sierra Club.
Linda Smith, I'm the current, Linda Smith, I'm the current executive committee chair for the Loxahatchee Group Sierra Club. And we did put together a flyer, if anyone would like it. It gives just some bullet points, you know, the history, you know, when, where, why, all those kinds of important points. And on the back, there's like, we call them the 10 Commandments for the Ag Reserve. So if you're wondering what you should say, you know, maybe you took a few notes tonight, maybe you didn't. But if you want a flyer, there's 10 points. Take the one that resounds with you and send it to your county commissioner and explain to them why it hurts your heart.
Thank you, Linda. And before I forget, COBWRA's petition is easily accessed, COBWRA.org. It is now the front screen on our website. If you go to COBWRA.org, my community, and I'm very proud, Bellagio with a B, and I have 2 board members here today, has been sending it out every single week. So please ask your communities. I have a question here and then a question over there.
Charles Carson, Platina. The way I understand it, Dr. McBoy, that if a study was done, it would fall really short and be negative as far as accepting the swap. Is that true? If a study was done independently?
I would separate out slightly. It's difficult to compare the size, how big on the scale is the benefits of the hydrology to how bad is it to put this kind of a dent in the Ag Reserve. They're not hydrological comparisons. I think to slightly change your question, if someone were to study properly this proposed reservoir and do it in the context of the other things that are already going, I don't know that they'd say it was negative. Like what the people, when we talked to the folks at the Water Management District, they said, look, if somebody gave this thing to us for free and there was no operating costs, would we find something to do with it? Yeah, we might. Do we need it? No. We've got other things going on. And so the important part is the benefits are just so small that it doesn't make sense to give credit for that to such a big negative as the Ag Reserve.
Okay, thank you. One more question, and then I'm going to ask our honored guest, Commissioner Woodward, if she would like to say a few words. But one question, please.
Yes, my name is Irwin Cohen. I live in Valencia Bay. My question is, we've heard that there's a lot of uncertainties today, and it's a major, major decision. One that will be overturning, for the most part, decisions made by taxpayers in 1999. My question is, on October 24th, I would encourage the Board of County Commissioners to consider postponing their vote, deferring the vote until we get answers to the very specific questions that need to be addressed. We have very well-positioned, distinguished speakers here today with expertise. I don't believe the county has gone into all of that expertise on their own. I would encourage it. It is too major of a decision to be made at this point. I would ask the 7 commissioners, if they can't vote no, at least table it until they have the appropriate answers to the questions, including what will be the costs to the taxpayers to operate this system. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. Commissioner? This is truly an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Commissioner Marcy Woodward. I'm District 4. Ag-Reserve is not actually in my district, but I'm South County. I'm East. I'm one of 2 who voted against this initially. I'm not as dynamic as our Vice Mayor Sachs when it comes to this. I have a very heavy heart. I come from a small town in South Carolina. I've lived here for 20 years, and to know that places like this exist so close to the city and in between us and the Everglades. I've heard mention of the Democrat Party. I am a Republican. I only bring that up because this is an issue that has unified all sides. I've had multiple conversations with quote unquote my people, environmentalists, everyone. And if anyone really peels back the layers and looks at this, you realize how much there is to it, how complicated, how convoluted it is. And part of that for me was why I think it's such a bad idea. It boils down to one single issue, and I appreciate you talking about the water project because that has taken the headlines. But the issue is we are breaking our comprehensive plan. We are breaking the ag-reserve tier. 20 plus years ago, this was put together to have a managed growth tier system. And I've been super educated in this in my less than year in office to understand how brilliant what they did actually was, the foresight that they had. And putting it together to where in the ag reserve, it's very small, it's 22,000 acres. It's this little curve between development and the Everglades. And it was meant to be shared with preservation. You know, if you build 100 acres, you have to preserve 150, and it's worked for a long time. And very quickly into being sworn in, I started having meetings about this because I knew it was coming and I knew I had a lot to learn, and I could ask the questions now as a commissioner that I couldn't get answers to as a citizen. So this is kind of the superpower of this job. As a commissioner, I ask questions and I will get answers. And I had multiple meetings on this, and I wanted to know, as you know, with the ag reserve, you know, we have all these transfers of development rights, we have preservation, conservation area. What happens when we run out of acres that still have development rights? So you can't transfer those to another parcel. And I was told, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And I said, we can see the bridge, like we're coming up on it. Because, you know, coming into this, my very first meeting was a 10-hour-long comprehensive plan zoning meeting where we had multiple issues on this. I had weeks to get brought up to speed on what I was voting on. And it was imperative that I understood, you know, we need to preserve this area. And there was a growth plan for this. And it was working. And I wanted to know, you know, from GL. And they told me they played by the rules for all these years. And now some commerce stuff is coming into town. And I kind of told him, I was like, well, you're sort of a victim of your own success because you've built all of these communities, and now the communities want the stuff. You know, they want some of this commerce. So if we're going to allow any development, it needs to be limited to that and no more homes, because we've reached the number that was planned for. Of course, that's not what they wanted to hear, because they want the 1,300 homes down here. And but what it boils down to is we are fundamentally breaking our comprehensive plan. All this other stuff is noise, it's sweeteners, it's whatever you want to call it. And we as commissioners, and this is what I tried to communicate, and if you don't know, we have sunshine laws. We are not allowed to talk to each other. In fact, I wasn't going to say anything if another commissioner was here, because we have very strict rules on what we can discuss when we're not in public on the dais. But I tried to communicate to them, if we are going to do this, we need to do it from a policy level in the ag reserve and have a full understanding of what this means to this 22,000 acres. right here. And it's not tied to what's happening 40 miles away. Those are separate issues. And I'm sorry for what happened with that. I think that that was a bad decision that was made years ago. And some commissioners spent a lot of time trying to unravel what was approved up there. They're separate issues. And if we don't focus that this is really about breaking the ag reserve, everything that comes after, it just doesn't matter, because we will fundamentally changed our plan and they're lining up for the next parcels. And if we are going to do this, then we should be responsible as commissioners. And I'm not trying to call any of them out because it's a lot to unravel. And hopefully they've had the time, like I have, to have as many meetings as I have and ask enough questions to understand what this really means from a policy perspective. And it's not just this is one development, one set of housing and this swap and this water project and all the other noise and all the other sweeteners. And I even said to the press at one point, you know, too much sugar rots your teeth. So it's like, if this is, to me, it's rotten from the core. And if we don't focus on the policy change, that this is breaking the ag reserve, then everything else that comes afterwards, it's the board that I sit on. And even if I vote against it, we will be the ones that did this. And whatever happens in the future, we'll be responsible. So I have a heavy heart, and hopefully you can reach my fellow commissioners. And I don't think they come from a bad place. There's a lot of bad information that they're given. And this water project is one that they have been bombarded with. So if we can get them to understand that it's not worth the squeeze, and what we're doing is fundamentally breaking our own policies, then maybe we have a chance to still stop this. But I know that there's 2 of us, we need 4, at least. So, thank you.
Commissioner, thank you sincerely. And we always miss Vice Mayor Sachs. But in this case, it was to our benefit that you could speak so eloquently on it. So thank you. And I would be remiss when we this is not a party line issue, as you can clearly see, and thank you for bringing that up. We have a representative here, an aide to Republican Representative Rick Roth, no relation to me. Terry Mitzi, if you would raise your hand. Terry works in the office of Republican Rick Roth. Myrna, Debbie, and I have been to visit Representative Rick Roth. He's a farmer in Palm Beach County, and he spoke eloquently yesterday in opposition to this land swap. He was at the Zoning Commission yesterday, as was my colleague Debbie Murphy and I think Dagmar Braz. So thank you. COBWRA will continue to get as much information out. If there's new information, we will share it with you. This is our objective. To everyone, our partners, those people from the communities who are the communicators, thank you very much for continuing to send out the information. Debbie, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think I would just like to add that please take the petition that you have. I'm pretty comfortable in saying everyone here has already signed the petition, but send it to your friends. Send it to anybody in Palm Beach County. We want the commissioners to understand that the entire county is against this, that there are residents throughout the county that are concerned about conservation easements being lifted and the precedent that that sets. So please share this with your friends and who that live anywhere in Palm Beach County, and ask them to share it with their friends. I have friends in Boca. I sent it to them. They both signed. I have friends other places. That that's what we need to do. We need to get anybody who lives in Palm Beach County to sign our petition. We need to show that voters throughout every district of Palm Beach County are against this. So please take the time to do that. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. So again, to our hosts, Barbara and Joe O'Donnell, sincere gratitude. To our partners always, Everglades Law Center, Sierra Club, Rabbi Silver, and certainly Chris McVoy and Paul Owens for making this very special occasion for us so meaningful. We thank you all.
Could I just say something? You know, we heard from the horses And we never do. They have a voice, and what they're saying is to the commissioners, hold your horses, get off your high horse, listen to a horse of a different color, get it straight from the horse's mouth, just say nay. Thank you. And come tonight to our meeting.
Barbara, I'm sure you would agree we should send these to the community.
Hey, good to see you.
Until, let me look at it. I haven't read it yet.
So you